Hello everyone and welcome back once again. This is your history teacher here, and this time I'm here with a new chapter of grade 7, Our Past Part 2, that is New Kings and Kingdoms. Students, your this chapter will be in two parts, and here's the first part of your chapter number 2. So let's start. So students, as the title of the chapter suggests, that new kings and kingdoms means in this chapter we are going to learn and discuss about the new kings and kingdoms that were emerged basically during the 7th and 12th centuries. Students, as you can see here a map of Indian subcontinent, and students, this map shows the major ruling dynasties between the 7th and the 12th century. Students, dynasty means a family of rulers who rule over a country for a long period of time. And as you can see here in this map, the Gurjara Pratiharas, the Rashtrakutas, the Palas, the Chamanas, these were the major ruling dynasties between the 7th and the 12th centuries. And in this chapter, we will basically learn about all these dynasties. Students, as you can see here the heading, the emergence of new dynasties means in this section we will learn that how the new dynasties between 7th to 12th centuries emerge. Student, by the 7th century, different regions of the subcontinent had big landlords and warrior chiefs. And student, these big landlords and warrior chiefs were basically acknowledged as the subordinates. Student, subordinate means to say in lower rank, that they were also known as Samantas that time. Means these big landlords and warrior chiefs were also known as Samantas that time, and they was acknowledged as subordinates by the existing kings. And students, these Samantas had to bring gifts for their kings and overlords and had to be present at their courts and provide military support to the kings whenever the kings required. But as soon as these Samantas gained power and wealth, they declared themselves as Mahasamantas and sometimes Mahamandaleshwara, means the great lord of a particular area. And students, when they declared themselves as Mahasamantas or Mahamandaleshwara, they even asserted their independence from their overlord and declared themselves as independent. Now student, here is such an example of a Samanta who later, when gained power and wealth, declared themselves as independent, and that Samanta belongs to the Rashtrakuta dynasty. Students, Rashtrakutas were basically the subordinate to the Chalukyas of Karnataka. And students, Chalukya was a very powerful kingdom of South India, means of Karnataka, and Rashtrakutas work as subordinate or Samantas of Chalukyas. But in the mid 8th century, there was a very powerful Rashtrakuta chief Danti Durga who overthrew his Chalukya overlord and performed a ritual called Hiranyagarbha, literally meaning the golden womb, with the help of the Brahmanas. Students, usually that time kings and warriors belonged to the Kshatriya caste. As a result, people accepted a ruler more easily if he was a Kshatriya. And those who were non-Kshatriya by birth can become Kshatriya by performing certain rituals. And students, Hiranyagarbha was such a ritual. And that's how this man, Danti Durga, became a Kshatriya by performing this ritual and formed their own kingdom. And students, in the same way, there were other kind of cases also where men, enterprising families, use their military skills to carve out their kingdoms and emerge out as a powerful kings, like Kadam, Mayurashraman, and the Gurjara Pratihara of Harishchandra. Students, these two kings were basically Brahmins who gave up their traditional profession of Brahmins and took to arms and successfully establishing their own kingdoms in Karnataka and Rajasthan. Now let's move on towards the next slide. Administration in the kingdoms means how the new kingdoms that were basically emerged during the 7th and the 12th century administer their kingdoms. Students, when during the 7th and the 12th centuries new kings emerged out, then they took up high sounding titles such as Maharaja Dhiraj. Maharaja Dhiraj, that means great king. Overlord of kings means king of kings. And Tribhuvan Chakravartin means the lord of three worlds. And so on, they took up very high sounding titles. And students, these kings also share their power with these subordinates, like this means Samantas, and as well as they also get power from the association of the peasants, the traders and the Brahmins. And in these states, the main source of resources were basically obtained from the producers like peasants, cattle keepers and artisans. And these producers were often compelled to surrender the part whatever they produce, and sometimes they were claimed as rent due to a lord who asserted that he owned the land. And students, the other source of income was revenue that were basically collected from the traders, and all the revenue that were collected from the different organization were used to finance the king establishment for the construction of temples and for forts. And students, sometimes these new kings also used to fight wars with the neighboring kingdoms in order to gain more and more wealth in the form of plunder and access to land as well as trade routes. And students, once these new kings defeated the kings of the another kingdoms, then they appointed their friends or relatives in the influential position and make that positions hereditary. And this was also the same in the army as well. And in many cases, close relatives of the king held these positions, as I said earlier. Now, students, as you can see the heading, Prasastis and land grants. Students, first of all, it is necessary for all of you to understand that what is Prasasti or what is the meaning of Prasastis. Students, Prasastis are basically a special kind of inscription that were basically inscribed in praise of someone, and they were composed by the learned Brahmins in praise of the rulers. But students, you will amazed to know that they may not literally true, but these Prasastis tells us that how the rulers of that time wanted to illustrate themselves as valiant, victorious warriors. And students, by this, these Brahmins were rewarded by the kings as in the form of grants of land, and this were basically recorded on the copper plates, and these plates were given to those who received the land. But students, there was an exceptional case of 12th century when there was a long Sanskrit poem containing the history of kings who basically ruled over Kashmir, was composed by an author named Kalhana. And students, this man Kalhana was often critical about the rulers, means to say he also wrote critics about the rulers and their policies, unlike other writers who used to buttering them. And he used a variety of sources including the inscriptions, documents and eyewitness accounts and early histories to write his account. Now let's move on towards the next slide. Warfare for wealth. Students, as we learned and discussed in the earlier slides, that many ruling dynasties, in order to increase their power, they try to control the other areas also. And students, during that time, there was such a city that was very popular due to its location, and that was Kannauj. And this city Kannauj is in the Ganga Valley, and it is a very prized area, and due to which the rulers belonging to Gurjara Pratihara, Rashtrakuta and Pala dynasty fought for centuries to get control over this city, means Kannauj. And students, since in this war there were three parties involved in this long drawn conflict, so historians describe this struggle as tripartite struggle. Tri means three and partite means party, means three-party struggle over a single city. And students, that time the different rulers also tried to demonstrate their power and resources by building large constructions such as temples. And hence, when these rulers attacked over one another city, they often chose to target temples, which was sometimes extremely rich. Now, students, as you can see here in this map, this is the map of Indian subcontinent, and as you can see here the title, the Kannauj Triangle. Here the word triangle basically used for these three parties that were involved in fought for 2 centuries. Students, as you can see here, here is the Kannauj, and here is Gurjara Pratiharas, here the Rashtrakutas, and here the Palas. Now, students, there is a question that what is the significance of Kannauj, due to which these three dynasties were in a continuous conflict. Students, that time Kannauj was the capital of Harshvardhan, and it was considered the symbol of sovereignty of North India. So these three dynasties tried to control over Kannauj to become the supreme lord of North India. The another reason is control of Kannauj also implied control of the upper Gangetic Valley and its rich resources in trade and agriculture. And it is another reason due to which these three dynasties want to control over this city. And the last reason was this center was best for trade and commerce as it was connected to Silk Route. So students, due to these reasons, these three dynasties were in conflict continuously for 2 centuries to control over this city, means Kannauj. Students, now here is an example of such a ruler who chose to plunder another kingdoms to increase his own power, and that was Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni. Students, this man over here in this picture is Mahmud of Ghazni, who was basically a ruler of Afghanistan, and he ruled over there from 997 to 1030, and he extended its control over the parts of Central Asia, Iran and the northwestern part of the subcontinent. And students, this man over here raided the Indian subcontinent almost every year, and its main targets being wealthy temples, including that of Somnath Temple of Gujarat. And as I said in the earlier slides, that during that times rulers wants to demonstrate their powers by constructing large temples. So they used to invest most of their wealth in these temples. So this man Mahmud of Ghazni took advantage of it and targets being the wealthy temples of India. And students, the wealth that this man Mahmud carried away from India was used to creating a splendid capital city at Ghazni. And students, he also wanted to find out more about the people he conquered. So he entrusted a scholar named Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni, basically an Arabic writer, and Mahmud of Ghazni hired him to write an account of the subcontinent in his Arabic work, means in his Arabic book that was known as Kitab al-Hind, to write more about the Indian subcontinent after consulting the Sanskrit scholars of Indian subcontinent. Now let's move on towards the next slide. Now students, the other kings who engaged in warfare, including the Chamanas, and students, later the Chamanas were known as the Chauhans dynasty, who ruled over the region around the Delhi and Ajmer. And students, the rulers of the Chauhans dynasty wanted to expand their control or wanted to expand their territory up to the west and the east, and where they opposed by the Chalukyas of Gujarat and the Garhwalas of western Uttar Pradesh. And students, the best known or the most famous ruler of the Chauhan dynasty was Prithviraj III, who ruled Delhi and Ajmer between 1168 to 1192. And this man, Prithviraj III, defeated Afghan ruler Sultan Muhammad Ghori in 1191, but he lost to him the very next year, 1192. So students, now here the first part of your chapter number 2 is finished here. I will be come back soon with the second part of this chapter. Till then, stay home, stay safe.